Join discord.gg/flatearth and enter a check-in room. Someone will come along and verify you to get involved in the conversation about our Earth.
Cripstickbeats, if you're there. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and unmute you now. All right.
Yo.
What's up, man?
What's good?
Hey, what brings you to the 24/7 Flat Earth Discord?
My mate added me.
Someone added you?
Yeah, my mate.
Okay. And so, have you read the welcome page, as in like the rules of the server?
I skimmed through it.
Okay. Do you agree with that?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. So, your friend brought you here. Also, with that, what is your position on the topic of the server?
What do you mean? In what way?
Do you think that the Earth is a globe? Are you on the fence, or do you know the Earth is flat?
I think it's a globe, but
Okay. Well, is there any evidence that you have for the Earth being a globe, Crip?
Not really. Not anything specific, I would say.
And what would be the strongest argument you think that you have for the Earth being a globe? If there's no evidence, what do you think would be the strongest argument you could bring forward for the case of the globe, right?
I do not understand why it would necessarily matter.
Why would the message of what we're saying here matter, or just why would somebody like, I don't know, like you have to be a bit more specific on that.
Just why would it matter either way? What's the point?
Well, it undermines, first of all, your worldview. So your perception on what it is. So you might think that it's a Earth being a globe spinning in the vacuum of space. Well, what if that's not the case? It would matter, wouldn't it?
Not really to me.
Why wouldn't it matter though? Why do you think it would matter to you?
I don't know, I guess people shouldn't be kind of worried about it. Would be my.
I'm just trying to figure out why does it matter to you?
Because why not?
Well, I can build up a case for it if you want me to. I can show you why it would matter.
Sure. I can't really talk. I got to be kind of quiet, but I'll listen if you want to talk.
Yeah. Really, I just want to get to the heart of why you think that. But at the same time, if you can't really speak on that, I would just ask you: is there any direct questions that you'd want this panel to answer? We'll answer you directly. Sure. So it doesn't matter how ridiculous they sound. Ask your question. We'll answer your questions directly, and in return, we'd ask that you do the same courtesy for us. If we ask you anything directly, you answer directly, honestly as well, and we'll be that honest with you. So we're establishing. Sure. We're going to establish like a rapport between your honesty and ours.
Yeah. Okay.
So ask any questions you'd like directly. We'll answer them directly.
Yeah. My first one would be, why would anyone want you to believe that the Earth is round if it's flat?
Right. It's a method of control. So if they control the agenda of why the Earth is a globe, then they become the arbiters of that knowledge. And if you want to gain any more access to that knowledge, you have to go through their gatekeepers, which is academia. So in order for you to get higher learning on the subject matter, you'd have to study for it. And certain arenas like academia, college, high school, elementary, all these institutions that are there are set to push out the agenda in regards to what information they want to cater to. So if they say that the Earth is a globe in a vacuum of space, spinning, whirling, twirling, whatever it's doing, right? Then the only way that you're going to get more information is if you go to these institutions and apply for more learning. So if you can see that they become gatekeepers, that's a great method of control, because now in order for you to know more, you're going to have to go to a subject matter expert, like an astronomer, an astrophysicist, that kind of guy. So you can't know more about the universe unless you go to one of these guys, and you'd
Yeah.
have to defer because you don't know more than they do because they've been studying this for 20 years and you're just a regular Joe. So,
Mhm.
in that way, it's a method of control, and it gives you a paradigm, a worldview that you didn't previously have just by looking upon it as what it is.
Mhm.
Can you see that perspective at least?
Yeah, yeah,
They-
I can understand that.
They are the arbiters of that knowledge, and you can't get any more knowledge unless you become some type of expert or you go to an expert, and then
Yep.
you know more. So it stops like knowing like whatever the earth is outside of your perception. It stops at like you can only reach a certain glass ceiling. After that glass ceiling, you can't break through unless you become a part of the institution itself. You're
Mhm.
a professor, or you're some teacher that actually has some investment in teaching people this.
Mhm.
So it's a method of control, and not only
Okay.
is it a method of control, but it holds you to a worldview that either keeps you indifferent about the topic, like, well, what does it matter anyway, or it puts it more of where you lean towards the side of the agenda, where you're like, dude, we got to clean up this earth because we're running out of resources, we're killing the planet, killer asteroids are coming, whatever, like any other agenda that's attached to it, climate change and all that. You're going to be controlled by that because of the fundamental information of the earth being a globe. Because it's a globe, there's consequences, right? Like all the
Mhm.
things that are attached to it being a globe flying in the vacuum of space.
But wouldn't the consequences be the same? Like, what are the
No,
consequences of it being a globe that would be different
completely.
on a plane or?
Yeah, well, yeah, I know you're saying that if it's not a globe, what is it, right? So the cosmological that shifts the kind of conversation a little bit, but not really.
Yeah, no, I wasn't
So
trying to shift it. I was just saying,
no,
wouldn't it
no,
be the
yeah.
same problems? But
Well, we're still talking about like the information, right? Like that's been presented.
yeah,
So when it's on the when it's on the people who are telling you what's going on, then they are the gatekeepers and the arbiters of knowledge, and you have to go to them to gain more knowledge. When it's on the other hand not up to them, then you become the arbiter of that knowledge. You become the researcher. You're the one who actually investigates. So it's not them anymore. You take the power out of their hands, and your mind, where you lend it over to those guys who are these quote unquote subject matter experts, you become that, because you're now, what you're doing is you're essentially taking power away from them that was originally yours. Your critical thinking, your logical understanding, all these kinds of things are brought back to your mind, whereas it was lent over to them because, why would they lie? So that whole thing that you are now looking at things as in it's things are a mystery now, whereas it was all discovered, and I'm talking specifically about cosmology. So we're in that cosmological aspect. You were thinking of it only being like, I have to be this kind of expert in that. Now you know that you can actually know the same thing that the other guy knows. So it becomes like you take the power back away from the structure that's been put in place, that was already here when you got here. So
my question would be, what's the
what do they gain?
what do they gain? Power? Is it for money? What's the purpose of keeping people
Yeah,
in the dark?
we can say a lot of things, but up to and including hiding God, the creator, hiding the creator, money, power, more land. A lot of people say that
Mhm.
more, there's more land, a lot of other things, right? But
Mhm.
we could use all these ideas and then say that's why, but I don't think that supports that. I think more often than that is to have you under a different paradigm mindset. And if I have
Sure.
you in that paradigm mindset, it's like anything if let's just say, for example, if I'm the arbiter of the knowledge, you have to come to me and find out about what the earth is. I can then use that to my advantage and say, I don't know. Let me just think of something. Giant creatures are crawling up out of the earth from the ocean, and we need to combat them. So I need you to give me your money because we live on a planet, and in this planet, this certain phenomena is taking place. So you guys need to pitch in and help me. So anything that I say, you will
Yeah.
capitulate to, because I am now the arbiter of that knowledge. And
You're
so
saying basically power, with power comes everything, right?
Oh, everything. They control
Yeah. Okay.
every aspect. So when you look at people out now in reality, out in the world, everybody's controlled by certain agendas. It doesn't matter what it is, right? Political, religious, like it doesn't matter. But whatever they're controlled by, when you go back to the source, you find out what the source, the agenda for that control was about. It was either for the people or against the people. And usually it's against the people. The more often than not, right?
Yes.
Whatever the it doesn't matter, but whatever it is to control the people that it's the agendas for. And there's always either a conglomerate of people that are at the leadership of all of this, whereas it's like a behind closed doors, only certain people know about this. So we understand something very true about all of these things is that the majority of the people that think that this is true, that about shifting it back to the earth, that think that the earth is a globe, they only believe it to be so because of the information that they've obtained. Oh, so they don't know that the earth is a globe. They just believe it like as a blind religious belief. And that's it. It doesn't come from a place of like fundamentally verifying the things that they know, because I've asked these people many questions, Crip. I've asked them, how do we know that the earth is a globe by way of measuring it with drop over distance? Like any time in history, think of a we're standing on top of an oblate spheroid, right? This geometric shape that we're standing on has geometric consequences. So it would mean that if we're standing on a ball, then that ball would have a radius, diameter, and circumference. Basically, that's what the public information is telling us. When you type into Google, how big is the earth and so forth, it gives you the values and the metrics, right? Like radius, diameter.
Yeah.
So these values are established. They're established in the sense of saying that, well, that's how big the earth is. So when you and I are talking about the size of the earth, that's its metrics. It has metrics to like the size.
It has a volume.
Right. And so we can say, okay, well, that information's out there. We all know that. But what we're doing in here is a step farther. It's not like saying that it's just a globe because they're saying it is. We're like, okay, so the information's out there. Now let's go someplace on Earth and test it. Let's test the globe to see if it actually stands for the claim that it is with its geometric consequences. Well, upon our investigation, anyone in here can do this, right? We find out with a small sample set on the Earth that you can find out from point A to point B over a set distance that there is no curvature, as in drop over distance. Now, you might think this is crazy, right? You're like, well, the Earth is too big. No, the answer is it's a set size. It's not too big. It is a certain size. Within that, within the confines of it being a certain size, it would be able to be measured. So if it's a definite size, what we can do is apply some kind of rigor to it, like and say, okay, let's try to figure this out. If it's a certain geometric shape, then what we can do is go to some place over the water where there's no land topography, which would get in the way, right? Because we'd have hills and valleys and mountains and stuff. So let's get away from the land topography. Let's go to water where there's not that. We don't have to worry about land topography, and we can like shoot across the water a sight distance. With that sight distance, we'd be able to determine whether or not the Earth that's beneath that line of sight is curving away with drop over distance. That would be the best way to achieve that. And if it is, well, guess what? It is, right? No harm, no foul. But if it is not, then someone's lying about this. And not saying that we're going to pin it on some boogeyman, but what we're saying is that the information that we received is not congruent with what we see in reality. So it becomes fundamental. It becomes something empirical. Either it is a globe by the metrics as it stands, or it's not by the metrics. So when we apply simple geometric math to this Earth, and we say, let's take a line of sight, because like as you know, shoot across the water, line of sight, we're going to find out how much drop there is from point A to point B over the distance of an arc, if that's the case. So we do that. We use a small sample set. You can go anywhere from like 10 miles to 20. And of course, hopefully you know, that you can see that distance fairly easily, like 20 miles away or whatever. You can see buildings that are in a far distance. Well, we apply certain understanding to that. Okay, so we got
Yep.
elevation height from the surface of the point of origin to the target, right? Point of origin would be where you're standing at, like let's call it the beach. At a beach, we'd be standing at a specific elevation off the ground, close to the water, because we want to get as close to eye line from the water as possible, and shoot across that water line of sight. What we're going to do is head for the target, which is going to be the horizon. The horizon is our target. So from the target, from the elevation of whatever we're standing on the beach, to the horizon, which is the horizon is defined in the Oxford Dictionary as where the sky meets the earth. So what we're doing is examining this test, right? We're going to check to see if the earth definitely has this consequent of geometric shape. So when we shoot across the water and we don't see the drop over distance that should be there, then we have issue with the earth being a globe per the metrics, per the values that they've given it. So now what we have is we have falsifiable information of the earth being a globe, or not being a globe, rather, I should say, because of the fact that per the claim, not that you or anybody else thinks that the earth is a globe, but that the claim as it stands has been falsified, as it's not been proven that it's a globe. So people that want to come in here and say rockets and NASA and all that, it's not going to do any good if you can't provide geometric shape, drop over distance. If we're standing on a blade spheroid, that it definitely is a globe via the metrics. So if you can't show me how it comports over to reality, that the metrics comport into like what the earth actually is versus what people are just saying, then you really don't have any evidence at all. You just have a blind belief in that somebody told you that there's curvature, and they show you images of rockets and on and on, curvature from space. And because I'm trying to now take what you're saying and test it. And so when I test it with line of sight, and if I don't find drop over distance, then you don't have an earth being the globe that they're telling you that you have. It's really that simple.
My question would be, if it is so easy to figure out, why isn't it common knowledge? I mean,
right.
It's not like every person is going down to the water and doing that, but also,
right. So
if it's so easy to find out, why isn't it? Let
me interject on that real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Saying.
So hold on, friend. So it actually is the truth that the Earth being flat and stationary is common knowledge. Let me explain. When you're a child, that's how you experience the world. That's what you think the world is. There's actually a sociological study that identifies the psychological developmental stages of a child where they're introduced with the concept that the Earth is a globe, contrary to their common experience, because up to that point they believe and know through direct experience that the Earth is flat and stationary. They are then told by an external source that the Earth is a globe. They are given specious evidence, and because of their psychological developmental stages, they take it on faith based on the authority of their parents and the institutions that their parents give them to. The child then develops a dual Earth philosophy, that there is a local Earth that is flat and stationary, and that when they leave the Earth, it then becomes a globe. This is the way the psychologists have gotten the kids to explain it, that there's two Earths. So it actually is true that we all intrinsically know the Earth is flat and stationary. We are then given counter information which we believe, and it becomes a belief in our minds. We never know it. So it's actually the case that everyone knows the Earth is flat and stationary, and they only believe because they were told that it's a globe. Interestingly enough, the major arguments, right, about the globe concede this point, that the Earth is experienced as flat and stationary. Everyone agrees on this. They then go on to tell additional stories of why the belief they want you to have is contrary to what you experience. For example, the Earth is so big, therefore it looks flat. See, it's an excuse.
Yes.
Contrary to your experience. It's very interesting that way, is it not?
I would argue that if you had, let's say a hot air balloon, a huge, huge hot air balloon, and you put an ant on it, the ant would probably look around and say it looks pretty flat to me because it's tiny.
Remember what I told you though, Crip. remember what I told you is that it doesn't matter what you see, it only matters what you can measure. So you can see whatever you want and your eyes can tell you whatever, but the geometric consequent of it being an oblate spheroid has to be tested. So let's just say, right, I have a basketball in one. Yeah, if I have a basketball in one hand and a box in another, you could say the geometric shape that both of these items that I have, one of them's a sphere, one of them's a cube. So if you're able to tell me that difference between them, you understand that each thing that I hold in my hand has a consequent of it being a shape. So that shape has its specific ranges of like what it's described as, right? Radius, diameter, circumference would be the sphere, and the box would have certain dimensions of like the faces of a cube would have. So then you would be able to describe to me how in geometry that makes sense to all of us to describe these things, right? The physicality of it. So with that being in mind, we're going to now test the basketball and the box, right? We're going to measure to see what is the actual size of the sphere that I have, which is a basketball, and the cube, which is a box. We're going to be able to determine with measurements what size this ball is. So with that, after we measure drop over distance with the basketball on 2 points of reference, then we can determine on a small portion of that basketball, I can tell you the arc that ensues from point A to point B. I can tell you, okay, with this small little arc on the basketball, I can tell you how much drop there is or elevation change there would be from any given 2 points. So that's going to give us a great way to determine that the sphericity, right, be based on one sample set of this basketball that we're taking. So that's the same thing we can do with the Earth. It hasn't been done because if it was done, then the Earth would definitely be understood to be the size that they claim that it is. But like the example that you're giving right now is to go up off like the basketball. Basically, you're saying let's get on a balloon, fly up on the basketball, and we're like, why are you going up when the only thing you have to do is be on the ground and do a line of sight and see how much drop there is, because that would be the easiest way. That would be the easiest way to find out, right?
Yeah, I think you actually misheard me. My only point with the ant was a response to I don't know what his name was, but who said about the child who knew that the Earth was flat.
Correct. So I understood your point.
Response to that.
I understood your point. I understood your point. Now explain it again. So the child experiences the Earth as flat and stationary. That's their common experience. From their point of view, that's knowledge. Someone else comes along and tells them, no, the Earth is actually a giant ball. And the child scratches their head and say, no frickin' way. The person that's telling them then says, well, if the Earth was a giant ball, you wouldn't be able to experience it because it'd be so big. Therefore, the Earth is a ball. You can trust me. Now, check this out. What they have given that child is a logical fallacy and an appeal to credentials, which is another logical fallacy, saying because I'm telling you, you should believe it, and I'm telling you an argument from absence, right, to prove my position. So when that kid accepts that proposition, he's accepting it on belief and faith alone with zero verification. Because while it is true that if something was beyond your perception, you wouldn't be able to perceive it, not perceiving it is not proof that it's true. That's called affirming the consequent, which is a formal logical fallacy, which you cannot get true knowledge from fallacy. So the kid doesn't know the Earth is a globe. He still knows the Earth is flat and stationary, just as his experience informs him.
Yeah, okay, I do understand your point, and yeah, you are correct. But also my point is, you perceive stuff as a kid. You perceive something as a kid, or you can't perceive stuff as a kid. You go, well, that could never be true, and then it is. Right, like if you raise a kid in a box and you never let him out of this white box, walls on each side, nowhere to go. He can't imagine anything else.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily true.
Let's apply that standard to the kids growing up being taught about the globe. So the kid clearly experiences it flat and stationary, and they come to a knowledge and a belief that they will assert that that's the case until a time when an authority, whether it's their parents or someone else, tells them otherwise. Now, that proposition at that point is a logical fallacy, right? Or not conclusive at best. It then requires an additional step to solidify it, and that step is called validation. The child must then go out into the earth and validate which proposition is true. The proposition that's congruent with his experience directly, or the proposition that's not congruent with his experience directly. And what's required to arbitrate that is material evidence in the physical world. And that can only be done through direct measurement of the object in question. You just go to the object, right? Like, you tell a kid, oh, that dinner plate over there is actually a sphere. Believe me. And the kid goes over to it, picks it up, measures it, finds out that it is actually a plate and not a sphere. And then he says to his parent, wait a minute, you told me a falsehood. It's actually flat. And then the parent goes, wait a minute, I told you it's a sphere. I told you so. And then you reply, but I measured it. You are wrong.
Yeah. I do understand that. I'm just saying your original point, saying that because kids perceive it that way, they're not less likely to be wrong just because they didn't know it to start with and they were told it. It's still 50-50 completely.
No, it's not.
But
It's not because he verified it. He verified that it's not a globe. I should say falsified.
Yeah.
He falsified that it's a globe.
But until it is verified, the kid doesn't know, right? Is my point.
Well, yeah. Just based on observation.
No. The kid does know. Hold on. The kid knows implicitly and internally that they experience the Earth as flat and stationary. That is
But my
first-hand
point was
proximate knowledge.
sometimes when kids do know stuff explicitly, it can be wrong.
Well,
Yes, but that's not the point. The point is not telling your child that Superman isn't allergic to kryptonite, right? And then you go into the comics. The point is their first-hand proximate experience is of the Earth as flat and stationary. That is a truism that is agreed on in all camps.
Yes. Yeah, but
So to go beyond that experience and say reality is actually contradictory to your direct experience requires extraordinary proof. And the childs are not given that proof. Now, I will submit to you, and my friend here, Miggy, will help you go down that trail, that such proof to validate that the Earth is a globe does not exist. And the proposition stands as just an assertion that is expected to be believed, not known in any practical experiential sense. All the appeals that they do are appeals to proofs that you cannot validate or experience for yourself. And it's essentially an argument from absence backed by a appeal to their authority. We're the experts and we're telling you so. You should believe us. And you go, wait a minute, I don't experience that. And then they say, well, you shouldn't experience it. And because you don't experience it, therefore it's true.
Mm-hmm. I do agree with that.
Plus, there is a claim out there. They've claimed it's been measured. They've given us measurements of the claim of Earth curve, and we've debunked it.
Well, supposedly it was measured in 300 BC or something, right?
Yeah,
that was what the Greeks did.
They say that. But like, remember, I'm telling you this so that you can wrap your mind around like why it hasn't been done as simply as I told you, Crip. If we're dealing with a geometric shape, the easy way to go about it is to measure it directly in the specific type of consequent that it would be. So if we're using a cube, for example, we know exactly how we would be able to measure that because we can see how a cube is defined. A sphere would be defined with the same type of consequent of being radius, diameter, circumference. And so we're going to apply a different method for this method of how we're going to measure a geometric shape. If you're standing on top of one, then it would be able to be measured as such. There's no other way around that. Like, if I tell you, okay, let me just throw an example or an analogy. If I tell you, go ahead and look to see how the sun moves across the sky, that will determine the geometric shape you're standing on. You're going to be like, no. And I'll be like, why not? You can see the sun move across the sky, and you could tell me easily that the geometric shape that you're standing on is a sphere. And you're like, why would I logically, right? Logically, you'd be like, why would I have to look at the sun if the thing in question is the thing I'm standing on? Wouldn't I have to measure that first? And the answer is yes. Yeah. So the way that they're telling you to go about looking at the sun, excuse me, my words are getting jumbled, but looking at the earth as whatever geometric shape it is, they're telling you to indirectly look at it as it's a geometric shape. And you're like, that doesn't make any sense. If I'm holding a sphere in my hand and a cube in my other hand, I am able to determine what shape these are because I know the values and the properties they have because of them being the geometric shape that they are. And so if I'm going to measure them, I'm going to measure them directly. I'm not going to hold a basketball in my hand and then look at the sun as it moves across the sky to determine the basketball's shape in my hand. That doesn't make any sense. I'd rather measure the basketball. That's the easiest way to determine what shape this is. So the I'd like to say trickery or the confusion is that whenever you're looking at the earth in that similar way, your mind changes. You're like, well, that basketball and the earth are not analogous. I'm like, and my retort is, why wouldn't it be? If they're both geometric shapes, can they not be measured in the same type of way that you would measure, just in a different way? But you could find out on a basketball and on the earth that there's geometric consequences, which would be drop over distance. That's pretty simple. You don't have to go to like Eratosthenes measuring sticks and shadows, Al-Biruni standing on top of a mountain. I could easily measure over a line of sight how much drop there is and then figure out if that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just simple. There's no magic trick. There's no gimmick. There's no like trying to confuse you. It either is the geometric shape or it's not. But then we have to live with the answer. That's the only thing. And not make up excuses, Yeah. That's the only other thing.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what I said before, if it was that simple, right, why isn't every 1 in every 100 people doing that, finding out somehow, right? Like,
because they think it's a foregone conclusion, Crip. They think it's a foregone conclusion. That means that the people, like you said, what was that guy, 300 BC? That's where it began. So why do I need to go back to caveman days to figure out if the earth is a globe? Whereas we're in the enlightened age today. We're enlightened because we have all this technology and information. That would be pretty redundant for me to actually go back to history to question the thing that's already established. You know what I'm saying?
I can answer that. I can answer that more in depth from an educational, systemic viewpoint. So, like I told you earlier, kids believe a certain thing and know a certain thing when they're young. They trust their parents implicitly and explicitly for their life and limb and home. The parents then hand that trust over and stamp their authority onto the education system and say, child, go learn about where you live and what you're supposed to do. The child then adopts that internally and says, I'm here based on the proximate authority of my parents to learn about my world from these experts. That is the mode that they take on when they go to school. The school then tells them what the system that they're currently present within wants them to understand. It uses a deliberate and systematic educational philosophy to teach the child certain ideals. One of those ideals, right, is authority. One of those ideals is science and the authority that comes with the veracity of the scientific method and such things. The child is taught that these things lead to truths. And they're taught this at a time in their life when they absorb it psychologically without even trying. So they adopt these things and imprint them on their ego identity, that science is true, that the authority is true, that we have studied this, we have measured it long ago, it's a foregone conclusion, it's settled science, etc., etc. They put that away in a compartment because the majority of their life, they will never actually need it. So they never need to challenge it because it's never practically useful or challenged in their daily life. So they have no reason to think that they should do anything about it because as far as they're concerned, it's already done for them. So the reason why the majority of people aren't out measuring the earth is because they don't feel any need to do so or any desire. Because one, they've been told it's already done, and two, the curiosity about it has been taken from them. For example, there's this movie called The Truman Show where a kid is in a prison, right? And everybody's watching him on TV. And what they teach him all the time when he says, I want to be an explorer, they tell him it's already all been explored. The same thing they tell kids nowadays. We already explored the whole Earth. The only thing left to explore is outer space. But guess what? You'll never go there because you'll never be an astronaut. So you have to trust NASA to tell you about the outer space adventure. You just stay here on Earth, go to work, pay your taxes, subscribe to Netflix, eat Cheetos, and sit on your ass all day.
Okay, so this isn't a rhetorical question. So you guys think that any job that involves measuring large plots of land or anything like that is all fake, or
Okay, I'll answer that specifically.
just anything, honestly?
All plots less than 20 miles or 200 miles are surveyed as if they're flat and level. Absolutely no accounting for curvature whatsoever, period.
Mm-hmm.
There's no need to, because we in the building community understand that on a practical level, there's no need to account for anything beyond a local plumb and level. So we shoot lasers, we use levels, we shoot grades, we do all of these things from a level line with absolutely no regard whatsoever for any concept of curvature. It's absolutely irrelevant. So again, to then claim that there's curvature present is just arguing from absence. There's no proof that it's there because there's no demonstrable need for it whatsoever. Now, don't get me wrong. You can go out to the internet and find people claiming that you need to do that. But people who build and people who understand and people who know look at those claims and laugh at them because they're beyond the tolerances of the material. So, for example, there's this bridge in New York City called Verrazano Narrows Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
That bridge is on a famous TV show called Modern Marvels. And it says that this bridge had to account for the curve of the Earth, that the top of the towers are out of plumb from each other by 1 5/8". These towers, which are hundreds of feet tall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, check this out, friend. The bridge is constructed with cement, concrete, steel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And it's 100 feet tall or more. And you have to build forms, and you have to make it, and you have to build it, and you have to construct it, and you have to interlace the pieces. The steel pieces have to be weighted. And what I mean by weighted is you have to sit there and wait for them to expand and contract to match the temperature of each other so you can put the bolt through the hole. Because two pieces of steel that are dissimilar temperatures will be at a different size. Now check this out. The Verrazano Narrow Bridge has a deck that's suspended by cables, which is counter-tensioned on the towers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of which towers, right, are leveled and plumb.
Mm-hmm.
It then has the deck that throughout the course of the year, through thermal expansion alone, varies in height by 11 feet. 11 feet. The platform that you drive on as a car, certain times of the year, will be 11 feet higher than it was previously.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they want to tell you that this thing that expands and contracts with a variance of 11 feet, that they're going to precision engineer it with steel and concrete to 1 5/8" for some reason. It's absolutely ludicrous. The tolerances of the material would not account for that. And even if you could, which you can't, right? There's nothing that exists that you can make these towers intentionally 1 5/8" apart. What's left with anybody who understands practical building is that the idea that they're 1 5/8" apart is simply a claim made by a mathematical projection. So the globers, people who say this, would claim if the Earth was a globe, if plumb lines were radial to the center of the Earth, if they constructed these things perfectly plumb, then they would be 1 5/8" apart at the top. Notice how there's 3 ifs in that statement. There's no validation that this is true. It's just an if-then statement, a hypothetical at best, unproven and unvalidated, and impractical. So it's not the case that people are going out there and utilizing the globe in any way, shape, or form in their daily lives, in their construction of things.
Yeah.
For example, there's claims that the military uses all these global calculations. I was in the military, never came up once. And I wasn't in fields that were to be excluded either.
Mm-hmm.
I was a range operator, a gunner, an armorer, dealing with artillerymen, all these types of things. The idea of this idea of a globe being necessary for anything we do was ridiculous. In fact, looking back at my time in the military, I realized that I was able to target enemy vehicles or utilize weaponry that was able to target enemy vehicles at a distance to where that vehicle should be precluded by the hump of Earth curve they claim is between me and it. Yet I'm expected to shoot at it and clearly see it plain as day. Now, back then, it never crossed my mind. If I can see this thing plain as day, and there's no hump of Earth curve in the way, what's going on here? I never thought of it. Then one day, I realized what they're saying about the size of the Earth is fake. And then I look back at my experience, and I realized, wait a minute, my experience is not congruent with a globe that they claim of a certain size, because that hump of Earth curve was not between me and the enemy vehicle. It wasn't there. So what's up? I go back to my experience. I didn't see a hump of Earth curve in between me and the vehicle. It wasn't there.
Okay. Next question would be: have you ever done a interview with a airplane pilot or a anyone from the Navy or anything like that?
Well, I don't understand what's the point of an airplane pilot. I want to submit to you, friend, that you said that as if it's an... Just listen. I want to submit to you that you said that as if I should know something about airplane pilots being intrinsically linked with some arbitrational position on whether the Earth is a globe or not. You didn't inform me of that. You just assumed I would know that. Why?
No, I figured that, in my opinion, if you're an airplane pilot, you must have to, if you thought the Earth was round, you must have to account for, obviously, the Earth being round in terms of fuel, everything.
I'll explain it to you. The pilots don't deal with the fuel. The pilots don't decide the fuel. The fuel is given in an excess amount of the expected trip. The trip is done by lanes, which are preordained. The pilot doesn't calculate those lanes. The pilot must go in pre-approved traffic lanes, essentially, from point A to point B. Now, the plane goes up, it maintains its altitude, it descends. That's all the pilot knows. Stay in my lane, make sure the plane don't crash. The pilot is not doing any calculations or considering the Earth as a globe whatsoever. He maintains the attitude of his plane based on his attitude indicator, which works off the assumption of plumb and level, which I already explained to you that plumb and level is what we all experience, right? Level, plumb, vertical, horizontal. Where's the assumption of curvature? There isn't any. Now, speaking of pilots, we have a video, which we could give you, of a Dutch pilot who was like a 28-year veteran female pilot who one day had an epiphany that her gyroscope didn't flip over when she went across the hemispheres that they claim exist. And in her mind, she knows that if my plane is upside down in comparison to when I began, my gyroscope should be upside down when I look at it. Yet it's not upside down. It's exactly the way when I took off. Ergo, somebody's lying about something, either the way gyroscopes work or the shape of the Earth. Transversely, we have a pilot who is an anti-flat earther who has claimed that he has the data from the black box, or he can get it, to give us, to prove that the attitude of the plane flipped. That's like 7-8 years ago now. Still hasn't given us the data. So there's no proof. Where's the proof? It's all stories, bro. That's what I'm trying to tell you, is that every one of these is stories. Now, there's another claim that you can see the curve of the Earth from an airplane, right? That's false. Okay? I could give you 2 hostile witnesses, which means they believe in the Earth as a globe, but they understand the mathematical and optical principles of being able to see a curvature in your periphery, left to right. Here's the deal. The horizon on a globe would be, theoretically, if the Earth was a globe, but just imagine a perfect sphere in an ideal free space. The line of sight to the horizon is the same distance 360 degrees around you. No differential in distance whatsoever. It's equal.
I do agree, yeah. Yeah, makes sense, yeah.
Also, concordantly, the drop angle to the horizon is equidistant. The same angle, 360 degrees around you. So you have the same angle of entry and the same distance. No variable. So, if that's true, and the horizon appears flat when you're close to it, the relationships of distance and angle hasn't changed. So it would look exactly the way it did before, which, by the way, Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, a famous astrophysicist, in in response to a video which people claimed was the curve of the Earth, he went on and said, no, that's not the curve of the Earth, friends. I'm speaking of the Red Bull jump, Felix Baumgartner. He jumped out and said, I'm jumping down to the Earth. And they had a fisheye lens camera. People thought it was the curve of the Earth. Neil deGrasse Tyson said, dudes, there's no way you can see the curve of the Earth at that height. Not possible. What you're seeing is a fisheye lens.
I think I've actually seen that clip.
Right. Now, he's correct. However, another guy who's a planetarium director, like Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson and involved in astrophysicist astronomy field, Paul Larson, did a lecture at his university teaching the children there, the students, that not only would you not see the curve from the ISS, right? Think about that. Neil deGrasse Tyson said you wouldn't see the curve at the Red Bull jump. Paul Larson says Mr. deGrasse Tyson is correct. However, check this out. The same mathematical principles apply at the height of the ISS. You're still in the same situation. So what they're showing you from the ISS is also fake. Now, that guy believes in a globe. He runs a planetarium. But he is honest and mathematically proficient enough to understand that it is impossible to see curve of the Earth from the ISS. Now, funny enough, when they show you curve from the ISS, it's curved in a way that the Earth would be an eighth sometimes or a sixth sometimes of the size they claim it is, clearly demonstrating to anyone with a clear mind that it's fake. Yet, why do people still think they're looking at the curve of the Earth? I'll tell you, because they were imprinted in their ego identity that the Earth is their home, that the Earth is a globe, and the authority in science has concluded the matter. And that is why, no matter what you put in front of their eyes, they'll say, I'm looking at a globe. It's true. Even if a globe believer, a expert in their field, tells them this is not the curve of the Earth. I'm an expert. I'm a legitimate scientist. I'm a legitimate university professor. Here's the mathematical principle. The globe zealot will look at them and say, no, I saw the curve of the Earth with my own eyes. And the other guy who's an actual expert in the field will be like, dude, there's something wrong with you. All right, so I've been gas bagging for a minute there, but I think it was all relevant. So I'm going to, do something else for a few minutes, give you guys a chance to breathe.
Yeah, sweet.
Shout out to everybody that's joined us on the panel early this morning. We got AJ in here, One Deck, Amish. What's up, guys? A Person, Colors of Country, Cryptic Beats is joining us. Conspiracies in the house. Batman from Australia, Lino Tomo, myself, Morvis, Paul V, Resolve, Wrecked is in the house. Dude, I haven't seen you in a while. We got Shift-X. I think I spoke to you, but you didn't return anything back. TOS UK, the cameraman. Yeti Your Problem, the mystery guy that's in the text chat's always helping us out there. Warrior, Ethergrass, and Carr, the silent partner.
Tags! What is your profession?
See, old friend, I brought more soldiers than you did.